dude, I'm going to tell you about something real quick. Like, okay, I need to tell you about Agent 3844. Do you have time for this?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Good.
Go on.
Good. Because if you didn't, I was going to tell you to make some. Okay?
Okay. That checks out. All right. Agent 3844.
Okay. I am a little bit in love with this woman. Okay. So I need to tell you about her.
Okay.
Okay. Her name is Virginia Hall. And Agent 3844 is like one of 20 aliases that this woman has. Okay? Okay. Let me set the scene for you. Okay?
Yeah.
Virginia Hall was born April 6th, 1906.
Okay.
To Barbara and Ned. Okay?
All right.
Now, keep in mind as I tell you this story, what was happening in this time frame. I'm going to talk about a lot of the historical events in this time. Anyway, I'm going to tell you recaps of them because I have to set the scene. I'm a storyteller, okay? But just remember that women in general were disregarded in this time frame, okay?
Right. Yeah,
that's what I need you to I just need you to remember that, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Barbara, Virginia's mom, is very much like everything a woman in 1906 should be. I say in the air quotes.
Yes.
And she expects her daughter to be as well. She does have an older brother. His name is John, I think. I didn't even remember because he's such a bleh. Virginia has a brother, yes. So they have a son, and then like 4 to 6 years later. Actually, my memory is now telling me that I think he was 1902 is when he was born. So yes, 4 years older, John. Okay. And then Virginia. Barbara expects everything out of Virginia that any mother at the time would expect to be. They weren't like, ridiculously wealthy, but they were content and well off, and she could expect an advantageous marriage.
Oh. Okay.
And Virginia could not care less about such matters.
Good for
and
her.
Wanted to hunt, and wanted to fish, and wanted to run, and think. All these things.
How dare
and
she?
Ned,
she sounds like a monster.
The audacity. But Ned, bless Ned, loves his daughter. Like, that is his little buddy, dotes on her, lets her do anything she pleases. Okay? Mm-hmm. Teaches her to shoot, all of these wonderful things. And Barbara, to be fair, okay, I'm setting this story up wrong. Barbara loved her daughter. Virginia has talked since all of these things, how much she loves her mother. Every step that she takes in the story that I'm going to tell you will blow your mind, but every single step of the way, she's like, can I do this to my mom? So there is love there. But it's very much like I want you to have the best life that you can, and all that Barbara knows is that that's the best life a woman can have, kind of
right.
deal.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So, Ned, all these wonderful things. She actually is engaged at 19. She does dutifully find the gentleman to agree to marry at 19. And she, this is one of talks about like the assumption of an adulterous relationship. That's just a thing that everybody just like put up with. So she leaves him behind. She's like, excuse you, I got things to do. Goes to college, right? Goes to college. I don't remember the name of it, but it became part of Harvard. But it wasn't at the time that she went to school. So she was going to like decent colleges, right?
Oh, wait, no, yeah. Okay, so she was born in 1906, so she would have been going to college like 20 years later. Sort of situation.
19.
Okay, so 20.
Yeah, because she left her fiance. She was like, peace out, my dude. I don't need you and your adulterous shenanigans. I'm out.
Okay.
So she started going to college, and she found there that, she didn't fail out of college by any means, but they called her, an average student, all of this stuff. And she was like, listen, Mom, Dad, it's because I'm in America in the 1920s. I hate prohibition. Women are not valued. Can I go to Paris? So at 20 years old, she goes to Paris. She does get a degree there. And she, her mom had been a secretary for a short time before her marriage, and Virginia was just like, look, Mom, I love you, but I don't want to do that.
Right.
But then she has to do that. So she does get a degree. And, I think this is like her third or fourth college. She's in Paris. She spends like 3 or 4 years there. She loves it. She's out of Prohibition America. Paris is just a lot more open. There's more artists there. It's just like a lot more artistic area than anywhere in America for a young woman.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah. And so she learns, she's like, she spends all this time in Paris. She learns to love it, first of all, but she also learns French, German, Spanish, Italian, and Russian. Okay. Right? This like 20-something young woman, 1920s, suddenly speaks 6 languages fluently. Okay. When she's in Paris, she also like starts to develop an interest in like the politics of the area, all this kind of stuff, right? So she eventually applies to be a part of like a diplomatic entourage. That's not the word they use, but it escapes me right now. And eventually the only thing that they would accept, the State Department would accept her into is a clerk position, right? Mm-hmm. And around this same time, was the start of the Great Depression.
Wait, her father so she's back in the U.S. now.
She actually started, she got her first clerk diplomat job. She wasn't a diplomat, but clerk in the same office as the diplomats while she was still in Paris. And she was actually, her first one was in Warsaw, was the first time that she got the clerk job. She does end up going back home. The Great Depression hits. Both her father and her brother, lose everything. They lose what was left of the family money. And again, it wasn't a whole lot, but they were comfortable, right? And then her father dies, has a heart attack outside of the building that he had been working in. So her brother, his wife, and their 2 children, and the mother and Virginia are all living in a house. And Virginia's like, this is literally suffocating. I hate it. Like, I love you guys, but I'm not getting married. I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to be a secretary. I don't want any of this. So she goes back to Europe. She moves around. She moves around Europe as a clerk somewhere in state departments. She does apply 3, 4 more times, something like that, to be a diplomat. She passes the first test, like the oral test with flying colors. A bunch of people go to bat for her and she just never gets it right. Like the State Department's just like, look, you're smart. Stay where you are. Stay in your lane. Do your thing. Right? Okay. Now, this is where things start rolling and this woman is incredible. Okay?
Okay.
So in Turkey, 1933, just to add a little bit of context to the date, around this time, the 3 years before this and moving into this year, is the time that Hitler was working on being elected in Germany.
Yeah.
Not entirely relevant to the story, but I'm going to go off on the tangent about how much it bothers me that people do not realize that he was elected.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
So
it's upsetting.
You're like, every time you tell any story like this, I will say it every time. Okay? Every time. Okay. Turkey, 1933. Virginia is there working as a clerk in the embassy. So she arranges, because she's still very much who she is at heart. She loves hunting. She loves hiking. She loves all of these things. And she gathers friends around her. She's just like one of those people that like, she doesn't talk a whole lot about herself. She doesn't really talk about her struggles very much at all, but she always has friends around. And the dudes are like, she planned this trip. It's awesome. Let's all go, So she like, sexism still exists in her life, but she finds ways around it. She always has, kind of deal. Mm-hmm. So she is out 1933 in Turkey with a hunting expedition that she organized. Okay. While there, they are climbing over a fence, a barbed wire fence. She's out hunting. She stumbles. The loaded shotgun that she had loses her grip on, starts to fall. She reaches to catch it. When she catches it, accidentally fires a round into her left foot. Massive.
Shot herself in the foot.
Shot herself in the foot. Literally. Yes. 1930s. Her friends frantically apply a tourniquet. This was like a hunting shotgun, right? Like there's like balls of shrapnel. Like the bleeding is insane.
A foot left?
She does for now. So
okay.
So tourniquet applied, they carry her out of the woods. She has these surgeries. All of these things are so incredibly intense. On Christmas Day, which I think the hunting trip, I think it was like December 8th, something like that. So it was something like 2 or 3 weeks later. On Christmas Day, 1933, they have to amputate the bottom part of her leg. I think it was below the knee, due to gangrene. She was like delirious. She was like, it was insane, right?
No kidding.
So they remove the bottom part of her leg. Still in recovery, still in England, like, this is insane. Goes septic, has another infection. The pain, there are quotes from this, from people who were there, all of this stuff, and they talk about how she had like these pus-filled boils on the remaining stump, and how she would just like grind her teeth in agony trying to change these dressings, right? Like, she's in so much pain, and she's depressed. She's like, I travel, I hunt, I hike, I'm, like, as much struggle as I found as a woman, as somebody with a disability, like, my life is over, right?
Sure.
And so she was very depressed, and she talks about how she's not a very religious person, but she has, what she describes as a vision of her father, who comes to her in the hospital while, like, septic. And he says to her, it is your duty to survive. Like, think of your mother, think of your brother. I'm already gone. It is your duty to survive. But then in typical father fashion, because it's like, her own feverish, visions, but if the pain is too intense, I will be back for you, all this stuff, right? Okay. This is a very long-winded story, so I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff and give you okay, so she has this moment, loses her leg. She's given a prosthetic, but at that time, it's like a piece of wood. It has a foot on it, it's, basically. I mean, it's like, she's not a pirate, but there's like an aluminum leg, but it's also extremely heavy. Like, it's like, a 9-pound, 10-pound piece of wood swinging around, right? So she actually ends up back in America, for her recovery, all this stuff. And again, every step that she takes, she's like, I'm doing this to my mother, like my poor mother, all this stuff. Okay. I just think in general, though, it's important to note that, like, at any point in history, prosthetics are not the most comfortable, especially immediately after an amputation. Like, it takes time. They actually, like, make you wait so long because they want all of your swelling to be gone. And in, like, Virginia's case, like, she had all these infections. So, like, I mean, that's why she needed the amputation, was like on top of the gunshot, but she also had all these intense infections from it. So, like, her stump would frequently have, even long after she had, the swelling had gone down, and just these like terrible, pus-filled nodules. And like the initial ones, and then to the point where she was able to get her prosthetic, like, it still caused problems for the rest of her life. It's still important, I feel, just to really put into context of all these events that come up later in her life, that it was not comfortable in any way, shape, or form. At any point of history would this be comfortable with this prosthetic. Like,
and at any point of having it on, like, not just when you're, trying to walk around or trying to do any activities. It's like, even just when you're sitting, like, I've seen people with prosthetic legs just like take it off while they're sitting because they're like,
right,
they need that break. And I imagine
it's like taking your shoes off when you sit down.
right. Yeah. Just like letting your skin get some air, and like, and with that weight, like, remove. Yeah. I imagine. Yeah.
I just feel like that's important context to add for the rest of this story that I'm going to hit your face with.
Yeah. Oh, I did want to ask, actually, do we know, like, back then, whether there was like a whole, what do they call it? Like, how did they keep it on? Because was it like a rubber seal sort of situation? Kind of like right now, I think it's like a silicone sort of sleeve.
I think it was mostly belt sort of setup.
Oh, that sounds even more.
I think so. She had this like sock thing that she put over her stump, and because there are places that talk about like pulling off like the bloody sock. And I wish I could remember what movie my brain is picturing right now, where I'm like picturing this like man sitting down and like undoing all the buckle straps on his leg and taking it off. And that's going to bother me. I'm going to be thinking about, because I'm like clearly seeing a movie scene, but I can't remember what it would have been from. Where they were like straps that came around the part that was over the actual leg. And you just like tighten the straps down. Which, yeah, buckles, not comfortable.
I can't imagine. Yeah, buckles are not comfortable, especially like having to have them so tight that they're keeping a heavy extension of your limb on. Like, yeah, that's bonkers.
Yeah.
So uncomfy.
Right. And that's why it takes so long for her to, like, you have to learn to walk. Like, like, I'm sure it like changes your whole gait, like everything.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few years, she's tried to learn to walk with this, and she is amazing at it. She really does make strong recovery. She can walk, and actually for a lot of the events that I'm about to say, people didn't even realize that this woman had a wooden leg.
Wow.
Okay. September 1939, Germany officially invades Poland. Okay.
Yes.
France and Great Britain immediately declare war. Virginia, I think by that point had been in the London office. I think she was back in Europe by that, because she went back to work with the State Department. She was still working as a clerk somewhere in the State Department. And she had watched the rise of fascism in Europe. She had been there for a lot of it. She had spent most of her adult life in Europe. She loves Paris. She loves France. She calls it her second country. And she is infuriated by the lack of American intervention. Infuriated on an individual personal level. So she's back in Europe. Germany officially invades Poland. France and Britain declare war. And she is rejected from joining a women's branch of the British Army because she is American. So that was her first wartime rejection.
Okay. Not because of the leg.
Not because of the leg, and not because she's a woman. Just because she's American.
American.
And okay. America had not entered the war.
Right. Okay. Fair. All right. Okay.
So she's rejected from the British Army. So then she sees Germany gearing up to invade France, which is her second country. She loves France. She loves Paris. It let her be who she was at a critical time in her life. She sees them gearing up to invade. She goes, and France actually allows her to join the French 9th Artillery Regiment to drive an ambulance.
Okay.
She's given like a crash course in first aid, which as a nurse, the training that these people had for wartime battleground care, that in itself breaks my brain. If I knew nothing else about this woman, if I heard nothing else about any of the things that were to come, I think of how we triage a mass casualty event today as a nurse. If you told me that I had to triage that in a war zone as a CNA, like the mental weight of that minimal is training. Insane. Yes. Yeah. It was like a month long. And at that time, it was as much being trained to drive the ambulance as it was to provide care.
Sure.
Like, just absolutely insane. So she actually was in France on the day that Germany invaded France. Some of her notes and things have talked about, like, just the deserters, like, World War II, there are so many other atrocities and stories that we can and have talked about. And so I'm going to kind of gloss over it, not because it's not important, but because there's a lot to this story. But she was there at the time that Germany was marching into France. And it just is what it is, that France was not able to put up much of a resistance. But she continued. She was one of the only ones that continued to drive the ambulance as Germany was like taking over France, was putting in their puppet government, was distributing the ration books, all of this stuff, right? Eventually, late 1940, Germany officially was like, get out or you're here kind of deal. And so they were pushing, as an American citizen, she was basically highly encouraged by everyone around, get out, okay? Huge influx. All these refugees leaving France already. That was already a thing. There is a man by the name of George Bellows, who was a British special agent, who was at one of these places where the refugees were crossing the borders. And he was watching the refugees and talking to them and asking them questions because Britain had lost their only ally up to that point. Like, France was the other big ally that had been resisting Germany, and they just fell. So George Bellows was placed here. He was trying to get information about what was going on in France, all of this stuff. Okay. It was a big thing. They had no intel. And here comes Virginia being like, let me back. Those are my people. I love this country. Like, you don't know what's going on. She was like, and he saw her and was like, what do you know? What's going on? Who are you? All this stuff, right? So he gives her a number of a friend. He said, I'm going to send you to a friend in London.
Oh, Peter's calling me. I gotta.
Yeah. Call me back. I got more.
Okay.